I would like to introduce our next speaker, KP Reddy, who is an angel investor, serial entrepreneur, and is going to share some about this emerging sector of urban tech and startup opportunities in Builttech. KP.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. For those of you that don't know me, I'm KP Reddy. I actually was part of the TiE chapter in Atlanta since 1998. So we started that up. Thank you. I tell people we thrived in the .com and we all disappeared during the .bomb. But there was a point, we talk about the charter membership and people think it's odd, you know, you have to pay to be on the board. Back then, after the .bomb, we were all like writing personal checks of all amounts just to keep the chapter going. And I think we've done pretty well since then. Okay, so my background, I'll give you a little bit of history. So when I was 13 years old, when I was 13, I started coding. My dad was a structural engineer. My mom was a computer programmer. Mom brings home a compact computer. Does anyone remember the compacts? Yeah, it was portable, right? So I started writing code. Dad shows up with a floppy disk. Who remembers a floppy disk? Says, hey, my buddy at Virginia Tech wrote a structural engineering program. What do I do with this? So started helping him out. So that was kind of my journey at that age, starting companies and understanding tech. Actually lived in India for about 4 years. My dad said, you don't know Telugu, you don't know anything. I'm sending you to Hyderabad for 4 years. Go live with your cousin. Kid of the Atari generation in India with one channel in black and white. Just hoping when I Love Lucy would come on for 30 minutes just to have something. So my dad just really tormented me. Fast forward, started a company when I was 23, and that company, graduating in civil engineering and wanting to disrupt, was construction management on the web in 1997. I went out to the market. I think now we call it MVP, customer discovery, went out to contractors. They basically said the internet was a fad, that fax machines would rule the world, that they used their CompuServe account for fun, but it would never be real. Pivoted, hooked up with these guys from WorldCom that said, construction management looks a lot like project management. Let me buy your software. Went from 2 people to 1,200 people and went public in about 3 years. Was 27 years old and realized I had no business running a public company because I was a child. And hired an executive team to run the company. But my deal was I get to stay around and have no direct reports and just learn, right? So that was kind of my learning. Did that, and there's a story here. So once again, wasn't able to do that. 2001, September 13th, 2001, we were doing a secondary offering of about $250 million. 9/11 happened. Our company went flat. I took a 2-year sabbatical to figure out what's next. And some friends introduced me to this technology called BIM, which in the world of aerospace and all, 3D computational design, build it in the computer, fly it in the computer, see if it breaks, was not being applied to the construction industry. Thought it was amazing technology, had my check written to invest in this company, Revit Technology Corp. Within a week, Autodesk bought them before they cashed my check for about $130 million on less than $1 million in revenue. So saw the trend, started another company in the BIM space, and then what happens? 2007 happens. We go from this to this. Was able to sell that company to a group in the Bay Area, great Sri Lankan guys that kind of took me under their wing and said, we're doing $850 million a year in blueprinting, technology is the future, and I became like their chief strategy officer for a bit. Did that for a couple of years, then got a call from a private equity group that was funding Frank Gehry to build a company called Gehry Technologies. They believed that this world-class architect needed adult supervision, so I was inserted as adult supervision. That did not go well. So no entrepreneur wants to be supervised, note to venture capitalists. And so left that, took a couple years off, went to go run Georgia Tech's ATDC incubator, which is very difficult as an entrepreneur because it's a government meets academic, which means don't really ever do anything, don't have a vested interest, but just survive. Left that and started investing in companies. The funniest thing is one of my companies is software automation. It's one of the sponsors here. I didn't know they were a sponsor until I saw their logo when I walked in, which is always fun. Wrote a book on BIM. It's textbook, very boring. My children think it's a good bed night reading, so they can just like sleep through the foreword. My latest book I released last month is called What You Know About Startups Is Wrong. And now I invest, I run, I help entrepreneurs. I've got about 12 companies, everywhere from Scotland to Cupertino to New York, and spend a lot of time on the road. If you're on the Twitters, that's the Twitters. So the built environment. So the reason I tell that long-winded story in a short period of time is because I feel like I've been dancing the dance with this industry, and every time I get a little bit vested, a little bit emotionally attached, it doesn't work, right? So I got into the market too early in '97, didn't work. 2007, things were going well, and then it broke. So maybe this is my last-ditch effort to kind of innovate the industry. I have this mantra, one planet, one chance. Apparently we're colonizing Mars, so that isn't that relevant anymore. But here's what we're dealing with, right? This is an industry that's highly fragmented, and the reason I like giving these talks is hopefully there's entrepreneurs in the room, massive, massive opportunities in the space, and you don't have to be the smartest because the industry is super fragmented. I remember just as little as 5 years ago, the CEO of a billion-dollar construction company telling me, this iPad is really cool, I'm going to return it because it's an expensive piece of glass and no one will ever use these. God forbid I'll never pull one on a job site. This is the industry. Show up with an iPad and an app and it's like magic. It's highly fragmented, lots of people making no decisions. So it's an ecosystem. So most people think about construction and they think about manufacturing, right? It's like a factory. No, it's not. It's like the movie industry. A bunch of people show up, they do a project, it either does really well, it's the Avengers, or it bombs, right? And they disperse, never to see each other again. Maybe 5 years later, they work on another project. So all those learnings, all those process, all that best practices gets vaporized every year. So it's Groundhog Day. So that's where the opportunity kind of exists in this space. And someone's gonna have to tell me about time. I'm bad at keeping track. 57 trillion, is there a bigger market? I mean, we can stop at 10 trillion, right? 57 is pretty good, we could have stopped at 10. It's a massive, massive market. Agriculture out-innovates the construction industry. So I tell my construction friends, the farmers are more technologically advanced than you are, right? That's how bad it is. What are the characteristics of great markets for venture, for entrepreneurs? Big, massive markets, lots of problem, lots of uninformed people in their ecosystem that don't know any better. So what I see now is there's a perfect storm brewing, right? There's ubiquity of tech. You go onto a job site now, everybody's got a smartphone, everybody's got an iPad. My first job out of college, I put sensors on MARTA, which is our subway system in Atlanta. Showed up with a $10,000 laptop, which is what they cost back then. I spent about $20,000 to $50,000 instrumenting the job site. All that could be done for $150 today, right? That's what's happening with tech. It's everywhere. How many of y'all have been trained on Facebook? Did you go to the training class? No, you don't get trained on, oh, someone did, sorry. So you don't get trained on Facebook, right? It's all just pervasive in our world. It's just there. The price of tech, like I said, you throw something up on AWS, you get an iPad, you have an app, you're off to the markets, good to go, right? You're not competing with Oracle and deploying big teams and implementation. I used to have a little SAP implementation practice. We used to charge 25 to 1. For every dollar of software, we charge 25 in services. That's really stupid. Right? I mean, that's like insane, right? Do people still do that? Probably. But those days are gone. Those ideas of large integration practices are gone. We're also in a crisis to innovate. So how many of your kids, how many of y'all that have kids are looking for them to be carpenters when they grow up? No? No carpenters? Guess what? They don't want to be carpenters either. They have zero interest in laying concrete. They have zero interest in building roads. They want to play with apps. They want to build robots. Look at the kids there. There's no contest for building the next great concrete structure. They want to do cool things. We have zero talent coming into the market, yet we need to spend trillions of dollars to rebuild the infrastructure. Right now, there are probably about 50% of all the bridges in America are not in compliance. They have not been inspected. In order to deploy people to go inspect them, they don't exist. The only choice is deploying drones with computer vision to inspect these bridges. That's just where we are. There's no choice. What's the problem? Building startups in this space is tremendously hard because, once again, it's a big market. It's highly fragmented. You know, if you develop the next big CRM system, you get a list of Fortune 1000, you call all the CMOs, you set an appointment, there's influencers, there's buyers, but this is like selling to the movie industry. Nobody's in charge, right? We're the classic case study for blockchain. Nobody's in charge, there is no authoritative structure. So it's very, very hard. So getting startups to market, you find these startups, for them to become unicorns, it takes them 20 years to be unicorns because they can't figure out where to go. So here's the market. So the left side's great, right? Architecture, engineering, construction, real estate, those are the markets. We saw a couple startups focused on this area. But the technologies, BIM, which is what I've focused on the last 12 years of my life, which is 3D computational design, cloud and mobility, building apps. It's amazing. We have a company right now, when you move out of your apartment and they have to come in and check, you know, did you mess it up? What's the status of the refrigerator, blah, blah, blah. That's an entire business. They're just nice, simple workflow apps. They're not hard. Build them in a weekend. Do a hackathon. IoT, robotics, massive. Like I said, we've seen robotic drywallers, robotic bricklayers, Google construction and robotics on YouTube, and it's a ton of fun. Guess what? None of it's happening here in the US. It's happening in India. India has to build 1,000 hospitals in the next 10 years, which seems like a lot, but it's not really once you do the math. China is doing a lot with robotics, and what's odd is they have 1 billion people to put to work, yet they're investing in robots. IoT, sensors are $50, $100. I mean, they're peanuts. You throw them away, and you can put them all out there. Machine learning, AI, I think we've seen a lot of stats and data on AI. The good news is this industry, they're not that bright anyway. So it's maybe not 20 years, maybe it's 10 years for the computer to catch up with the people in our market. Blockchain. I see every kind of blockchain deal every week. You know, feed your dog with blockchain. I mean, it's just amazing. Like dog walking services using blockchain. Apparently, if you throw blockchain on your pitch deck, you're worth $5 million automatically. But there's a business model that exists where blockchain is the best opportunity, and that is no decentralization, lots of fragmentation. The massive problem we have, I would say about half the problems in our market around approval process, payments, et cetera, blockchain solves in our industry. It's pretty straightforward. It's a mess. Blockchain could clean it up. Am I on time? I'm okay? 5 minutes? Okay, good. So what did I do? I went and started an incubator. I started a fund. We launched our incubator in Atlanta. We partnered with a little company called WeWork. They're one of our backers. They love us. We love them. They like our intelligence. We love their money. Good partnership. So we're building out about 6,000 feet in Atlanta, Georgia, and we'll continue to scale globally with that. But the idea is you have to put all the right people in the room. You have to put the innovative talent. I like to make fun of the construction industry, but there are super smart people. You have to pull them out of the woodwork. I call it my revenge of the nerd strategy. I'm pulling them out. They are not the people with the big titles. They're the people that are actually writing code and doing work, so therefore not the CEOs. This is kind of the journey we take people through. We talk about innovation being a journey. I used to say innovation, people think innovation and startups looks like Monopoly. It really looks like chutes and ladders. Like you think you're moving along and you hit the wrong, it looks more like that. Some people think it looks like tiddlywinks. So how do we support? We have capital. We have go-to-market insights. Our research group finds insights around what narrow markets does your product best fit it? Does it best fit in? Because once again, it's $57 trillion. How do you find your first market with a $57 trillion market? We help you figure that out. So we have a team that's constantly doing that. We have promotional activities. We have an accelerator. And now we have space globally. So our fund, $25 million fund. It's a baby fund, right, in the world of venture fund. We're not Kleiner. We're not Mark. We're not those people. It's a $25 million fund. We do $500,000 to $1.5 million investments. I have to see tech. That's my thing. Show me magic. Don't show me workflow. Don't show me something that you built at a hackathon. Show me magic. Show me a drone that works with a fleet that is monitoring a job site for safety and is using computer vision to predict that this person's going to get hit by that tower crane, right? That's what I want to see. And I need to be able to, if I can figure out how it works, you've lost. 2017, this is my personal portfolio. Hummingbird, we basically enable people to build and design the next tallest building in the world. Big buildings do what when the wind comes along? They sway, right? In order to sway, they build a big swimming pool on top. Or in Taipei 101, they put a big pendulum. That takes up 4 to 6 stories of floors. Our system goes into the walls. It's active. It was actually commercialized out of NASA using dampening system for rockets. It goes into the wall. You lose very little floor space. So those 9 stories that you were using to dampen sway, now you can use those and rent them out. We tell our developers, we just gave you free money. We have a company in Edinburgh that does data center protection. PZFlex, we just renamed that to OnScale. It's finite element analysis in the cloud. Basically, if you think about waves, your next cell phone, your next RF, your next 5G is all requires this simulation. That's what we do. We're about 1,000 times faster than any software on the market. Customers include Apple, Skyworks, et cetera. Let's see, Vistamat we shut down. They didn't make it. Construe is BIM collaboration in the cloud. Tommy Run, you're on a job site. You need 2 2x4s. You send your crew out. They never show back up because they got stuck at Home Depot and they got stuck in traffic. They never come back. So instead, on demand, I'm in the job site. On the job site, I need 2 2x4s. I order it from my app. Shows up in an hour. Never had to leave the job site. So high level of efficiency there. We soft launched our incubator in February. I think I tweeted once, did some LinkedIn posts. We didn't really do any press. We had about 37 applicants in 2 weeks. We culled that down to 28. We approved about 13. If you want to know about any of these companies, let me know. I want to be careful about time. Atlanta, first week of October. Thank you. First week of October, we host Builttech Week. What does that mean? We have a week of fun and follies, so to speak. We partner up with Georgia Tech. We have everything from demo days. I think this year we're going to have entertainment. So Atlanta's big on hip hop, so we might have some hip hop happening. But it's this whole week where we have investors come in and researchers come in. We threw it for the first time last year with 9 weeks notice, and we had over 500 people show up. This year we actually hired a firm to manage it, so hopefully we'll do better than 500. And we have a year head start. I'm going to skip the cohort. We look a little bit different. I don't think negotiating equity economics with a startup makes any sense when there are 3 people, no revenue. Like, just let me help you build a company. If you do well, then I'll invest later, but I don't want to take money. I don't want to take equity from you. It's too early. You don't know what you're worth. I don't know what you're worth, so let's not stop. I tell people it's like when dating. If you start talking about what you're going to name your kids on the first date, you're probably not going to have a second date. So let's not talk about money first. We have a great team. Jackie's in Vegas. Most of our team's in Atlanta. And then we have advisors. Steve Hagan ran the GSA. Does anyone know who the GSA is? GSA is the largest landlord in the world. Steve ran them. So if I want to know about what owners need, I call Steve. We run all of this via Slack channel. Some people can on their own do phone calls, traditional stuff. But most of it's Slack, so any of our companies can hit any of our advisors on Slack and ask questions. Hey, I'm getting ready to interview a roboticist. What smart questions should I ask them to stump them? I mean, those are the kind of messages that are happening. Cliff Moser runs Stanford University Medical Center. Jay Essner used to be head of strategic alliances at IBM. Jamie Bartum used to run innovation for Georgia Pacific. Let's see. Barry Clark is one of the top roboticists in the world. There's another guy, Matt, who's our drone expert. He holds the world record of the fastest drone in the world. So these are the type of people that our startups get to talk to and engage with every day. That's what I do.
Okay, question?
Hi, KP. Thanks for sharing about Builttech. What do you see the role of this construction equipment, like from Caterpillar and others, and you talked about drones or even autonomous equipment. How does this fit into the Builttech?
Yeah, Caterpillar's doing some interesting things. The idea you load a site plan into your motor grader and it just runs autonomously. They're doing that already. What's interesting is companies like there's other areas that we're focusing on that are a struggle. One is batteries, right? If you start talking about batteries and power gen, all these big buildings have these massive generators. Caterpillar actually does those. How do you move that to more efficient situations, more like batteries? So we're seeing it on the equipment side. Stanley Black & Decker has been a great partner of mine. They actually have a group called Stanley Ventures. So they're doing everything from deploying mesh networks on job sites so that you can locate tools. Because guess what happens? If someone leaves a specialty piece of equipment on the 4th floor and they're radioing like, hey, where's that at? Try to just be able to geolocate it on the site. So there's a lot happening there, as well as theft and theft on job sites, people stealing equipment, being able to track that. So tracking and smart enablement is huge. And then, of course, robotics.
Thanks for the presentation. I have a couple questions. Number one was, could you deconstruct that 57 trillion number? That kind of went over my head, and I didn't understand if you meant that was an annual size of the market. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so if you look at annual construction, basically building buildings and infrastructure and maintaining that infrastructure, it's about 57 trillion a year globally. Maybe the technology. Oh, no.
And have you seen any applications of 3D printing in construction?
Yes. Actually, at South by Southwest this year, a company announced that they can do for $6,000 do a 3D printed house. So think a big, the printing head's about this big and it's pumping concrete into it. The Korean companies like Hitachi and Hyundai and all those guys, they're doing a ton in 3D printed construction. I also think on the component piece, like needing to replace a part on a HVAC system, you're going to see some of that stuff, being able to do one-off parts and not have to see if it's in inventory and wait 3 weeks to get a specialty part. But right now, you're seeing a lot around concrete and 3D printing.
Thank you for your insights. In regards to the 3D printing, what do you think in terms of materials and the waste components that come out of the infrastructure? How is that going to have an impact on the environment? Because I'm very green.
It's massive, right? So 20% of a building ends up where? In the dumpster, right? So if you could take a fraction of that, everyone in America would have a free house. I was working with the city of Atlanta and our previous mayor, and I said, hey, can I measure how much every construction dumpster weighs coming off of a job site against square footage of built? And he's like, that's a great idea. That's a great benchmark. He went to his team. They said, we don't want you to know that number because it's enormous amounts, right? So I think 3D printing, the on-demand aspect, so being able to get materials when you need them, a lot of the waste that happens is sometimes, there's a reason why there's jackhammers. If you think about why should there be a jackhammer on a new job site, it's because they're generally jackhammering up old concrete. So there's a lot of people doing reuse, like how do I take that busted up concrete and reuse it in the mix? Material sciences is one of those things. We're living this world of SaaS and this and that, and I get a little frustrated because I think those are all simple things. Building software is easy in my world. We're not spending time on material science, and material science is where there's a reason why batteries and that's where we've got to spend more time in research. I spend a lot of time at Tech and at Georgia Tech and everywhere else. Material sciences is the future because a lot of these things, even like 3D printing, having graphene construct and being able to do things with graphene, we have to figure all that stuff out, and that's really holding us back. I think material sciences innovation is holding back everything we're doing in the built environment.
So it's interesting, one of our friends was involved in the Smart Cities Innovation. I saw one of your references to Dublin with Dell and working around the world. And he said the way you do a smart city is one building at a time. So I appreciate the fact and that that you're approaching a market that most people have left ignored for a long time. So let's hear it for KP.